There's a specific item sitting on a shelf at my local Dollar Tree right now that genuinely does not make sense. Not in a wow, what a deal kind of way, in a someone needs to explain this to me kind of way. I brought it up to an employee expecting a quick, simple answer, and instead I watched her stare at the price tag for a solid 5 seconds, flip the box over, check the barcode, and then just shrug. Her exact words were, "Honestly, I don't know how that's still that price." An employee, someone who works there every single day, genuinely confused by her own store's pricing. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why this specific item broke both of our brains a little, and I'm going to show you what happened when I went back 3 days later specifically to see if it was even still there. Stick with me, because this one gets stranger the deeper I actually dug into it, and there's a specific moment about halfway through where I genuinely wasn't sure what I'd actually find when I went back. Real quick before we get into it, I'm not naming the specific store location in this video, partly out of respect for the employee who was honest enough to actually admit she didn't know, and partly because, well, you'll understand exactly why by the end of this. Let me back up and tell you how I even found this thing in the first place. Because it wasn't sitting on some big obvious end cap with a flashy sign. It was tucked on a middle shelf, in the small appliances section, easy to walk right past, if you weren't specifically scanning every single item, the way I tend to do now after making this channel for a while. A small, rechargeable, handheld vacuum, cordless compact, the kind of thing you'd use for quick cleanups, car interiors, crumbs on a counter, pet hair on a couch cushion. The price tag read $5. I want you to sit with that number for a second, because it's about to matter a lot more than it sounds like it should right now. I actually walked past it the first time too. If I'm being completely honest, my eyes catching the shape of it out of the corner of my vision before my brain fully registered what I was looking at, and I had to physically backtrack a couple steps once the number on that tag actually landed. I picked it up assuming there had to be a catch. Maybe it was a display model with no battery inside. Maybe the box was empty, one of those frustrating situations where the packaging survives but the actual product has quietly disappeared. I checked the weight in my hand first, and it felt substantial, not hollow, not suspiciously light the way an empty box usually gives itself away immediately. So I bought it, $5, tax included, and drove straight home specifically to test it before I even considered making a video about it. The drive home was honestly a little ridiculous in retrospect, me glancing over at this small box sitting on the passenger seat like it might somehow reveal its secret before I even got through my own front door, half expecting to open it up and find some obvious reason it had ended up priced this low in the first place. Here's where things started getting interesting. I looked up comparable cordless handheld vacuums online, the same general size and function, before even opening the box, and the cheapest comparable option I could find sitting on a real retailer's website ran $35. The pricier, more well-known versions climbed past $50, some pushing towards $60 for essentially the same basic pitch, cordless rechargeable, compact enough for quick cleanups around a car or a kitchen. $35 at minimum for the exact same basic function I just paid $5 for. That's not a good deal anymore, that's a 7 times difference, and typically when a gap gets that wide, it means something is fundamentally different about the product itself. Weaker motor, shorter battery life, cheap plastic that cracks the first time you drop it. I actually kept that browser tab open on my laptop the entire time I was testing this thing, refreshing back to it every few minutes almost like I needed a reminder of exactly how absurd this comparison really was while I worked through my own hands-on evaluation. So I actually tested it properly, not just a quick 5-second run to confirm it powers on. I used it on my car's interior first, seat crevices, the little gaps around the console where crumbs and dust collect no matter how careful you are. It picked up debris genuinely well, comparable suction to a slightly used cordless vacuum a friend of mine already owns, one she paid around $40 for a couple years back. I actually texted her a video of it working mid-test, half expecting her to tell me I was imagining the comparison, and instead she asked me to send her the exact location of the store, which honestly told me everything I needed to know about how genuinely convincing this test was turning out to be. I ran it on carpet next, then hardwood, then finally against pet hair stuck deep in a couch cushion, the true final boss test for any handheld vacuum claiming to actually work. It struggled a little with the pet hair, not a total failure, but noticeably less powerful there than on looser debris like crumbs or dust. Everywhere else, genuinely impressive, especially once you remember what I actually paid for it. Battery life was the next thing I wanted to verify, because a lot of budget electronics cut corners specifically here, promising a runtime that quietly falls apart the moment you actually put it to the test in real conditions. I fully charged it overnight, then ran it in short bursts throughout a single day, mimicking how someone would realistically use a quick handheld vacuum, rather than running it continuously until it died just to get a dramatic number. It held up through roughly 20 minutes of total active use before the suction noticeably weakened, which, for a $5 item, is honestly more than I expected walking in. I actually double-checked this specific number by testing a second time on a different day, half suspecting I'd gotten a lucky first unit, and the results landed close enough to the original test that I felt genuinely confident reporting it here rather than treating it as a fluke. Now here's where I went back to that same employee, the one who genuinely couldn't explain the price, and asked her directly what she thought was actually going on. Her first theory was a pricing error, something that slipped through when the item was originally logged into the system, a mistake nobody at the store level actually has the power to correct once it's live in the register. That happens more than people realize. A product gets coded incorrectly somewhere upstream, and by the time anyone notices, correcting it requires a level of approval that simply isn't worth the hassle for a single item selling in small quantities. She mentioned she'd seen something similar happen before, with a completely different product a while back, a mispriced item that lingered on shelves for nearly 2 months before anyone upstream actually caught and corrected it, which honestly made this whole situation feel a lot more plausible than I'd initially assumed walking in with my own skepticism. But then she offered a second theory, and this one genuinely surprised me more than the first. She mentioned this specific item might be tied to a liquidation batch, inventory purchased in bulk from a manufacturer or distributor clearing out old stock, sold to this store at a steep discount specifically because it needed to move fast. If that's actually what happened here, the $5 price isn't a mistake at all. It's a deliberate, temporary window, inventory priced to sell through quickly before it's simply gone and never restocked again at any price. She explained that this kind of liquidation deal happens more often than most customers would ever guess. Entire pallets of genuinely decent products acquired for pennies on the dollar, simply because a manufacturer needed warehouse space or a distributor's contract, fell through somewhere further up the supply chain, none of which has anything to do with the actual quality of what ends up sitting on the shelf in front of you. That distinction matters enormously for anyone watching this video hoping to grab one themselves, so let me be completely direct about it. If this is a pricing error, it could get corrected at any moment, the price bumping up to something more reasonable the next time inventory gets reviewed. If it's a liquidation batch, the low price is intentional, but the supply is finite. Once it's sold through, it's genuinely not coming back, not at this price, not at any price, because there's no ongoing manufacturer relationship behind it in the first place. Two completely different outcomes, two completely different reasons to act quickly if you happen to be near one of these yourself, and at that point in our conversation, I genuinely had no way to know which explanation was actually the real one. This is exactly why I went back 3 days later. I needed to know which theory was actually true, or at least get closer to an answer than a shrug and two competing guesses from someone who, however helpful, ultimately doesn't set the pricing herself. Walking back into that same aisle, genuinely unsure what I'd find, there was a real moment of tension standing there, phone in hand, scanning that middle shelf specifically to see if anything had changed. The price tag was still there, still $5. But here's the detail that actually answered my question better than any employee explanation could have. The shelf tag itself, the little printed label showing the price and product code, had a visibly different print date, stamped in the corner compared to the surrounding tags. Which tells me this specific tag was reprinted recently, not simply left over from an old pricing cycle nobody bothered updating. Someone, somewhere in the system, actively confirmed this exact price recently. That points much more strongly toward the liquidation theory than a simple overlooked error quietly waiting to be caught. Stock was also noticeably lower than my first visit, where there had been a small cluster of these sitting together on that shelf originally. Now there were only 2 left, pushed toward the back, easy to miss entirely if you weren't specifically looking. Whatever this actually is, mistake or intentional liquidation, it's moving. People are finding it, buying it, and that shelf is quietly emptying out in real time while most shoppers walk right past it, having no idea what's actually sitting there. I want to pause here for a second, because I think this whole situation reveals something bigger than just one specific vacuum. Pricing at a store like this isn't some perfectly uniform, centrally controlled system where every single item is calculated with flawless precision from a single source. It's messier than that. Supply deals shift. Liquidation inventory comes and goes. Occasional errors slip through and sometimes linger far longer than anyone intended. Most of the time, none of that matters to a regular shopper, since the vast majority of items here genuinely are priced exactly how you'd expect, Straightforward, consistent, no mystery attached. But every once in a while, a genuine anomaly like this one slips through the cracks. And if you happen to catch it while it's still there, you end up with a $5 item that would cost 7 times more literally anywhere else. So what do you actually do with information like this? Honestly, the answer is simpler than you might expect. Pay closer attention to shelves you'd normally scan past quickly. Small appliances, electronics, anything with a barcode and a brand name rather than a generic house label. These are exactly the categories where pricing anomalies like this one tend to show up, simply because they involve more complex supply chains with more opportunities for something to slip through unusually. If something looks even slightly out of place, a price that feels too low, even by this store's already low standards, it's worth a second look and a little research on your phone before assuming it's simply another normal, everyday deal. I'll be honest with you about something else too, since I think it's worth saying directly. I don't know with complete certainty which of those two employee theories is the real explanation here, the pricing error or the liquidation batch, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to give this video a cleaner, more satisfying ending. What I do know is what I actually witnessed with my own eyes, a genuinely capable product, thoroughly tested by me personally, sitting at a price point that doesn't logically match anything else on the market, confirmed by an employee who works there daily and still couldn't fully explain it, with a recently reprinted price tag and rapidly shrinking stock that all points toward this being real, intentional, and temporary rather than some fluke about to correct itself any second now. If you're near a Dollar Tree yourself and want to go check your own local small appliance section, I'd genuinely love to know what you find. Drop it in the comments, whether it's this exact same vacuum still sitting there at $5, or something completely different that made you do a double take the same way this one made me stop in my tracks. I read every single comment on these deep dive videos specifically, and honestly, some of the best future topics on this channel have come directly from what you all report back finding in your own local stores. And if a video like this, one that actually digs into the why behind a single deal instead of just rushing through a list, is something you want more of, subscribing genuinely helps me know to keep making them. This kind of investigation takes a lot longer to put together than a straightforward haul video, multiple store visits, actual product testing, tracking down employees willing to talk honestly, and knowing there's an audience that actually wants this depth is exactly what makes doing it worthwhile, instead of just rushing out something quicker and shallower. One last thing before you go. I'm planning on checking back on that exact shelf again in about 2 weeks, specifically to see whether that vacuum is still sitting there, whether the price finally got corrected, or whether it's completely sold out and gone for good. If you want to see how this story actually ends, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because I'm genuinely curious myself how this plays out, and I think you will be too once you've made it this far into the story with me. Thanks for sticking with me through this whole investigation, and I'll see you in that follow-up.